All right. Good morning. Hey, Emma. Hey, Caitlin. Hey, Brendan. Hey, Will. I hope you guys are doing all right. So, I'm making this recording so that you can listen to me talk about all of this stuff for your upcoming exam. So, about the testing dates for your first testing date, and then if you needed a makeup testing date, expectations for how you guys are doing it, the timing, tips and tricks for how to take the exam. I also have some notes from Miss Carpenter to talk to you about. Um, so one of the first things that I want to make sure that you guys, I guess, are prepared for this exam is that you're able to take it in the first place. Now, everybody in here has been able to send me their work for like the warm ups and everything. So I feel like you should be at a good spot. You should be able to take the exam with whatever technology you're using, likely your phones, and then be able to take a picture with your phones to share your work or submit your work. Um, but let me know if that changes. It's super, super important that you guys have the option to be able to take the exam. So let me know. I know things can happen. Phones can drop and break. We can run into technology issues. Maybe something's up with the internet at your house. Maybe your Chromebook or your phone has an issue. Please, please, please let me or Miss Carpenter know if you have any issues about accessing the test. AP College Board will be able to provide you with that like equipment. I'm expecting that if someone needed something, if someone needed a Chromebook, the school would work with them to be able to provide something for you. Now, I think we all have that, but just as an underscoring thing. All right, so let's get started here. So you have two dates for your exam. However, we're all going to be taking the exam on the first testing date. The second testing date is for makeups only. So the testing date is going to be Thursday, May 14th at 2 p.m. So again, Thursday, May 14th at 2 p.m. We are taking our test at 2 p.m. because it is going live for all of the AP students. So typically what we do is you guys are in school, you take your test at 8 in the morning, and that happens across the nation for each time zone. Because we're sort of dealing with this new situation, they are making the test live for everybody all at once, which means that people in California are going to have to take the test at a reasonable time. So, for example, if they're taking it at 10 in the morning, that's why you're taking your exam at 2 in the afternoon rather than something like 10 or noon, something more reasonable. So, again, your testing date is on May 14th at 2 p.m. There is a makeup testing date, which will be June 2nd at 4 p.m. Again, the makeup testing date is June 2nd at 4 p.m. But I would say absolutely, absolutely, you guys are taking it on the 14th. Do not torture yourself by taking a later testing date. It means you have more time to stress over it. It's going to be a different exam. It's going to likely be more challenging as a second exam. And there will not be a third makeup date. So if something happens, like if you, I'll talk about it in just a minute, but you guys should all be taking the first testing date. All right. Other things about this exam. AP College Board is asking you to be online on your AP College Board website about 30 minutes ahead of the exam. Please, please, please make sure that you guys know your logins and your passwords at least like 2 or 3 days before the exam happens. Get all that information sorted out. I wouldn't want you guys to be logging into the test at 2 o'clock or at 1:55 right before the exam starts and then having some technology issues and then be forced to take a makeup exam. All right, so again, be online ahead of the time. You're going to be sitting there waiting for the page to go live, and then you'll refresh the page and you'll be able to log in and take the exam. The exam is 45 minutes. It is two long open response questions. So in this 45 minutes, what you're going to have is you are going to start the exam. You will start question one, which will be 25 minutes of time. So you'll have 25 minutes for your long open response question one. After those 25 minutes are done, you will have 5 minutes of upload time. I am not 100% sure what the online page will look like. So I'm not sure if after the 25 minutes, I'm sure you'll have a timer that's counting down. But after the 25 minutes, I'm not sure if the page is going to expire and then you'll have 5 minutes of upload time. Or if, I don't know, I'm not really sure how that's going to look when you're taking it, but they say you have 25 minutes for question 1, you'll have 5 minutes of upload time. After you are done with question 1, or after you time out of question 1, you'll begin question 2, and you will have 15 minutes for question 2, as well as 5 minutes of upload time. So that comes out to be about 50 minutes, but my understanding is that the 5 minutes of upload time are not part of your 45-minute exam. They're sort of part of the processing part of it. But again, I'm not sure how that's going to look on your testing website. I would only assume that the question that you're looking at is going to be blacked out, or it'll like auto refresh once it hits that last second. Both of these are long open responses. I am not 100% sure what qualifies as a 25-minute long open response versus a 15-minute long open response. To me, it looks like one long open response and one short open response. It might be that your long open response, your 25-minute one, is a calculation-based test or a calculation-based question, and then your 15-minute long open response is like a particle diagram or an analysis of an error, something like that, which might take a little bit less time, but still might be described as a long open response. Let's see. Once, I think I have said this, but just to say it again, once question 1 is submitted or times out, you cannot go back to it. So you're only doing one question at a time. And again, you can't go back and look at question 1 after you have moved on to question 2. Question 1 is going to be 60%. The 25-minute question is 60%, and question 2, the 15-minute question, is 40%. Again, they are both described as long free open response questions. The description, now these descriptions, again, these are all off the College Board website, and I do think that they're pretty vague. So what they describe is the questions are going to look at chemical systems or data. They'll explain the chemical phenomena with models, theories, particle diagrams. They will draw conclusions from experimental results and identify experimental procedures aligned to a question or some source of error. They will analyze systems with quantitative reasoning. They'll support claims with evidence and reasoning. And again, this is on units 1 through 7. So the only thing that's not going to be on it is our acid-base unit. So when we are thinking about all of the language that they're using to describe these questions, to me, it feels like you'll have, and again, we've looked at a lot of open response style questions, but this looks like an analysis. Like question 1 might be, you are using like a balanced equation, some stoichiometry, doing a equilibrium calculation, a system of Q, maybe an additional salt is being added and you draw a picture of those ions. Other things that I was thinking about, particle diagrams, stuff like that. Let me know. I think that you'll definitely have a stoich sig fig problem. I could see question 2, a shorter problem, maybe being like a gas law problem, and then thinking about how there might be some source of error, or like we've seen those questions like, oh, Susie Q did this and got this number, or what was wrong about her calculations. So questions like that are what I'm predicting. But again, they haven't said too much more about it. Other things for your exam. Besides being open note, and again, you can use whatever you want, you must have that periodic table and that formula sheet. On the College Board website, they refer to this as the AP Chemical Equation and Physical Constants sheet. Those constants are on there, but we just call it a formula sheet. You have these somewhere in your folders. You have a periodic table and a formula sheet. Use them. If you guys would like to use the laminated periodic tables, I think I gave you in the beginning of the year, then use those as well. Any periodic table works. Any formula sheet works. What I really, really recommend, though, is don't use a digital copy. If you have a digital copy on your Chromebook, you're going to be flipping back and forth from tab to tab. It's going to be super annoying. Also, you can use a calculator. They describe that all of the calculations don't need a calculator, but you can use them. So these are probably going to be, that's what makes me think like, oh, this is like a Q problem, where you might have, like an X squared. You might have some calculation where you don't need a calculator, but it's going to speed things up. It's going to make it faster. What I would also say about the calculator is don't use an online calculator. You guys have your calculators, make sure you charge them, you have batteries in them. If you are typically using your phone, that's probably where you are going to be taking your test, so don't use your phone as your calculator. Again, if it's a last resort, use your online calculators or whatever. I think that it is going to be another source of error. Those tabs are not going to load as properly. You're just going to be wasting your time dealing with technology issues rather than doing just the problem. All right, so that's the info that I have on the exam from the College Board website. I also have some tips for success from the College Board website. And I'm sure you guys, know these things, but I wanted to say them out loud. All right, first and foremost, just because it is an open note test does not mean it is easy. So all of these questions on your AP exam, they're not going to be like vocab questions. So on a typical AP exam, you would have in your multiple choice and in your short answer, you would have had questions that are like, what type of bond is this? Or what type of molecular geometry is this? They're not going to do that anymore. They're going to do all sort of analysis questions. So while they may describe, like we saw that ozone question the other day, why they may describe like the shape or the something of a molecule, they're not really going to be asking for that because you could Google that. You could say, oh, what is the molecular geometry of ozone? And it would tell you online that it would be bent. So they're not going to be asking you for stuff like that. They're going to be asking more about sort of these applications, more unique style questions. That's also why I think they're going to be like stoichiometry, sig fig, equilibrium values, because I think that those are less textbooky. All right, another thing, still need to prepare. So just because it is an open note, everything exam doesn't mean that you're not studying for your exam. So you guys are studying whenever you're looking through these PowerPoint notes. That's a little bit of review, and we're doing the warm-ups. That's studying too. But you guys also know I have those postings. We have the do this, don't do that, PowerPoint slides about the language you should be using. We have a bunch of example open response problems. I would look at that rather than any of the multiple choice at this point. But prepare yourself. All right, more materials does not equal better. Yeah, so here's a really, really big concern that I have for your online exam. Because it is online, I'm really worried that you guys are going to get hung up on looking for understanding the question or looking for information in your textbook or somewhere else and not focusing on actually answering the question. So it's sort of a trick to have an online or an open note test, right? Because then students are looking through their notes, you're spending 5-7 minutes trying to understand the question when you only have 15 minutes to answer it, right? So just because you have the materials doesn't mean you really should be using them. That's why I say study. And again, I also think that at this point, you're welcome to look anything up, but I don't think you should really need those open notes for taking this test. Let's see, copying an answer is not good enough. So one of the things too is that, and I said this earlier, but all of the questions are going to be posed so that you get unique answers. So we're not really going to have scenarios where you're going to be able to copy the answer from something. That being said, AP is describing their plagiarism software as sort of being, how should I say, what's the word that they're describing it as? Not secretive. The word is evading me right now, but it's confidential. Maybe I should say that. They're not describing how they're going to know that you're plagiarizing, but my mind would think about there's these plagiarism sort of like computers where you plug in the text and it'll cross-reference that text with like every other source on Google or text document or something that they might have. So the issue here is if you are taking any work from Google, if you're taking any phrases or math down, you will be found out for plagiarism and your test will be made invalid. So that's another reason why, just because you have access to other materials, it's kind of a trick. I wouldn't even worry about it. Just do what you can. Notes, not Google. Yeah, so this too, one of the bullet points that AP is trying to remind us is don't look on Google. Use your notes if you want to refresh on something. Let me just check my time. About 15 minutes left. So I'm going to keep talking about these bullet points in the next recording.